All right. Welcome, everyone. Thank you. It's great to be back at the RSA India Summit and spend some time with you today. My topic is, what I think about is, as we talk today about digital transformation and risk and all of these different security parameters, my job, really, in life is to try to figure out how do we actually manage that risk and translate that back to the business and incorporate the business back into that. And so today I would like to spend a few minutes thinking about digital transformation and the impact that it's been having on risk management itself and that practice. As Holly had discussed and as many of the speakers presented today, digital transformation is a real thing. It is impacting everything that your businesses and organizations are doing. Yesterday we actually had the great opportunity of hosting a number of customers for a risk roundtable in which companies across India were represented and across sectors talking about the impacts of digital transformation on their business. And I was really taken by really the huge transformations that companies are going through. And the way I like to categorize it, and this is I'm stealing from the World Economic Forum, is that digital transformation is usually in one of three buckets. One initiative is really around efficiency. So the use of cloud is a great example of that, and getting out of data centers and getting more to an OpEx type of model. The second real objective of digital transformation is around improving the customer experience. So as we develop new mobile apps and work with social media, and how do we improve that customer journey and experience for our customers in our organization. And then the third real major initiative is around developing new products and services. So fintech is a great example of that in the financial services. In the transportation sector, we've seen many, like Uber and things like that. But how can digital absolutely transform an industry and a product that you introduced into the market? And so if you look at that backdrop of those three initiatives, you really start to realize that as you talk about digital transformation, it really comes to the fabric of an organization and its objectives and mission and statements and things like that. And so what I would deposit to you is that since risk management is really at the fabric of an organization and thinking about what are the risks to an organization's objectives, that too has an impact as we think about digital transformation. So what I would like to kind of suppose to you all and suggest is that digital transformation actually has to disrupt naturally how risk management is done within our organizations. In fact, I have suggested to many chief risk officers, and hasn't gotten a lot of pushback actually, that the way that we have done risk management traditionally, actually, if that continues in this era of digital transformation, it will have less and less value for the organization, and it will not be able to keep up. So therefore, we must change how we're doing risk management, and in itself must transform alongside the business as it transforms digitally. So I'd like to present to you kind of how that change is going to occur. Now, for those of you who are risk managers in the room, you'll recognize this life cycle of risk management. ISO 31000 is the framework that most of us use to think about how we do risk. Very simply, identify, evaluate, assess, and respond. That is not changing, right? So the basic premises of risk management, I don't believe, will change. These steps will still always be necessary. But everything about how these steps are done, who they're done by, and the tools that we use to do them will change, I believe, in the digital transformation era that we have now. So as I break down those changes, I look at it from a couple of different factors. First, the actual objective of risk management, I am finding, is changing across globally. Traditionally, risk management in the country that I'm from, in the United States, really started as just a check-the-box compliance exercise, right? So traditionally, risk managers were there because of some regulator told them that needed to be done, or for Sarbanes-Oxley compliance, or things like that. Now, when I actually lived in Europe and represented our business there, I found because it was less regulated, organizations' risk management programs were born for a different reason. And I see that in India a little bit as well, in my beginnings of working here. Risk management is done for the purpose of risk management, not necessarily for compliance, right? And it's fascinating to me as now India's regulatory environment is actually growing and maturing, it's at an interesting crossroads, because is risk management really still done for risk management, or should it be done for compliance? And I would hope and suggest that let's not go back to those compliance days where value is really minimalized, and really doing risk management to really exploit opportunities. That's the promise that proper risk management can be. It's really about not getting in the way of business, but really helping found how business can be exploited and how opportunities and objectives of the business can be met in even a faster time scale. So as digital transformation takes over, it's really about speed, right? Ultimately, at the end of the day. And it's about how can we take advantage of the opportunities in front of us before the next competitor who's probably not even in that business today. And so speed is of the essence, and risk management done well can help in that process if it has the right objective. Another facet that's changing in how risk management is being done is really about who is involved in the process. So traditionally, mostly in the current state, and traditionally, it's been done by the second line of defense, if that's something you know. So that is like the risk and compliance department. I would probably guess that many of you in this room have some title of risk or compliance or security. That's a second line function. And so you have the primary responsibility potentially within your organization of managing the risks. That is changing. In a digital transformation era and just modern risk management, it is being very much decentralized at the business level. So proper risk management is really done by the first line of defense, which is the business itself. The people that are best to manage the risk and own the risk are those that actually operate the business. And so moving that responsibility is a big change of what's happening. So the users of risk management technology, the actual providers and operators of risk management process that I just showed before is absolutely changing how that's done. And so we need to think about that as risk managers. How do we enable that first line defense? How do we enable that business to do that? Second or third, as I discussed that process, right? The process of risk management isn't changing, but the way and the tools that we use to do that is changing. Traditionally, risk management has been seen as very qualitative, right? Is it high? Is it medium? Is it low? Risk managers, we love colors, so is it red, green, yellow, that type of thing. It's been traditionally seen as an assessment or a point of time, point of view in which we look at things, once a quarter or every 6 months or once a year. And it's traditionally, risk management is in the game of prediction, what is going to happen, but we largely look at the past for that information. And we're always assessing what has happened to try to give us some type of clues as to what's going to happen in the future. Well, that's no longer going to be valuable in the speed of business that is around digital transformation. What happened 2 minutes ago is absolutely going to be, a million times different than what is happening 2 minutes from now. And businesses are just moving so fast that this qualitative approach and the periodic kind of backwards looking is just not going to suffice. And it will not add value to our organization if we think like that as risk management. So risk management needs to move at that same speed of business. So in order to do that, we don't have the power of scaling that qualitative approach at that speed, so we must turn to quantitative methods. We must quantify risk. Now, fortunately, digital is all about data, right? And all that data that's being created by these new digital techniques that we're using, like software and algorithms and APIs and all of these new controls and things. So we can leverage that in the risk management process. We can tap into that data to help us better analyze and use AI methods and machine learning to better analyze that data to change from a periodic backwards-looking approach to a continuous and predictive approach. Using some of these same digital techniques that the business is using, let's use it ourselves within the risk management function. And then finally, that will let us now have quantitative methods so we can present in real time to the business what's really the impact of the changes that they're making in the business to the risk posture. So with that, obviously, technology that you use to support your risk management function has to change too, right? So the traditional technology of risk management, including RSAArcher in the product line I represent, that's been around now for 19 years. The technology that was born 19 years ago is absolutely not going to suffice for what's required into the future. So RSAArcher kind of, as one of the grandparents, if you will, of GRC and integrated risk, really is focused around bringing people together, right? It's about assessments and questionnaires and workflows and action plans and things like that. That process that I just talked about has nothing to do with questionnaires and assessments and action plans. It's about data. So the technology that we use for this new function must be centered around data. Data is now the new human, if you will, in risk management. We need to have much more better access to data on a real-time basis. We need to manage that data at a whole new scale that has ever been thought about before. And then we need to take advantage of new AI and machine learning techniques to be able to automate the analysis and the treatment of that data. So much like we do in security with SOAR, Security Orchestration and Automated Response, that the speaker spoke to earlier, we need to apply those same principles across risk, not just in security, but across risk management. How can we start to automate and orchestrate risk response across the business? And so the technology needs to support that. And then finally, all of that being said, fundamentally, risk management is in the game of managing risk. And so the risks themselves, as Holly presented earlier, are changing as well in this digital transformation era. We are going from the old kind of analog risks, as I like to call them, now into the new digital risk era. So those analog risks are not going away. Business resiliency, safety, environmental, those are all still concerns to our businesses. But now we're having new risks introduced to us. The introduction of cloud and IoT and all of these techniques and new algorithms are creating things like model risk, right? And cloud security risk and third-party risk is becoming even more important to us. And we as risk managers need to then understand these new areas and get expertise or be able to leverage tools that are purpose-built for understanding those risk areas. And we need to understand how do we integrate those views and those new risk areas into our overall integrated risk management approach. And so that as a backdrop really hope set the tone for what the journey of our organization at RSA and RSAArcher is all about. Our mission and our team is to absolutely get to the right-hand view of that slide. And every day, we're working towards that. Now, fortunately, we're not just starting now, because we knew this and we had this slide about 2 years ago. So to that point, we've had an awesome year this year in terms of trying to put some points on the board, if you will, and to get that journey going to get to that end state that I just described. So over this course of this year, we had release back in May, Archer Suite 6.6. We also introduced new purpose-built capabilities, leveraging machine learning for specific use cases. So 2 examples of that. One was our third-party security risk monitoring, which actually uses technology to go look at your vendor's internet presence and actually rate the security and risks of that presence automatically without doing assessments like we used to do today, and be able to present that results in a score, a risk score back to you so that you can understand your vendor's risk posture from a security perspective. The other use case that we came out with using artificial intelligence this year is around regulatory requirements. So everywhere I go in the world, regulatory change is an issue. Our regulators are keeping themselves in business by putting out more and more regulation, right? Or changes to regulation. And it's the burden of the business to really understand what those changes are and understand what the impact of those changes are to their organization and to their control framework. That is hard and it takes a lot of effort. So what we have done is put machine learning in place to actually automatically do natural language processing to look at unstructured data, a regulation, and actually structure that for you and actually do a match compare on the regulatory statement to your control framework. And it'll actually suggest the gaps that you have in that regulation to your control framework. Pretty cool stuff. So that is the regulatory content analysis use case. We also, as I talked to you just a few minutes ago about the changing user population, right? Very interesting kind of statistic for you. About 5 years ago, the average RSAArcher customer had about 100 users within their RSAArcher application. And that was mainly the risk managers. Today, that stat is over 40,000 per customer. So companies like Microsoft and many others are actually giving RSAArcher access to every single employee within the organization, and contractors, and vendors, to hopefully integrate all the risks across the organization and get the business involved in that organization. So what we need to do is we need to change. We built a tool for this one set of user, and now all these other users are starting to use the platform. So the platform needs to change to represent that new need. And so in a release that we just made public last week, actually, RSAArcher 6.7, it's really focused around the user experience and that changing experience for the user and making it much more simple and easy for that casual user, the one that's not normally engaged in risk, it's not usually part of their job. How do we engage them into the risk conversation and make them part of it? If you haven't seen it, I would definitely recommend you check it out outside in the demo pods. Also last week, we had a good week last week, so it's fun to be here now talking about it. So on Friday, we actually made available RSAArcher SaaS. One thing that we know to be true is that companies want to get out of the business of managing infrastructure and risk management technology and things like that. We've heard that loud and clear across the globe. We've always had a hosted model, which is somewhat of a SaaS model, but now we've gone to a truly dedicated SaaS journey. It started in the US. At the beginning of next year, we're bringing that across the globe in Asia and in Europe. And we're very excited. It's not only technology, but it's a whole different business model, a whole different customer support model that goes along with that. So a soup to nuts kind of business change for us in terms of how we're offering our service to you and taking the load from you in terms of managing the application and making sure that it's up to speed and top notch. With RSAArcher SaaS, you'll get features much more quickly. You'll also get, the best type of environment, and it will scale with you as your needs change. That being said, 70% of our customers are still on their on-premise deployments, and we are totally fine with that. So we believe in customer choice, and we believe in making it available to you as you want it and as you need it. So we will continue to support our on-premise customers and treat them as first-class citizens. And then finally, we still do quarterly releases of the RSA Exchange, which Holly referred to earlier today. So with that said, I just want to quickly touch upon really the three things that we're really doing next year, into next year, to really help us get to that future state of risk management that I spoke to earlier. The first thing is modernize the platform. So we need, as I said, and Rohit, our president, says, if we want to be in the business of managing digital risks for our company, our customers, we must be digital ourselves. And that's really a big journey that we're on at RSAArcher. So number one, we just released RSAArcher SaaS. We still have a lot of work to do to optimize that and continue to develop that. We also need to actually fundamentally change the architecture of the platform to be able to be more scalable and responsive and handle the data loads that we want to handle. And then transform, frankly, ourselves to more of this DevOps kind of mindset so that we can increase the flow and velocity that we have, as well as the quality of the software itself. The second thing we need to go do is actually introduce a whole new concept within risk management, and we're calling it Right for Me. Right for Me is born out of frankly, the observation that we've had forever that every single customer in this room does risk management differently. You're all at a different point of your maturity, even in the same sectors, but even across sectors. You all do things differently. And we need, instead of presenting one platform to you and one version of a use case to you, and having you use the great configurability of the platform, having you do, handle professional services or do this with partners on your own, try to make the software fit what you do, we want to come to you and where your processes are and recognize that everyone's in a different state. So the question is, how can we use modern techniques like artificial intelligence and machine learning and advanced analytics to better tune the engine and tune the platform to meet where you are in your risk management journey and help actually start to suggest to you where you could go next in your risk management maturity. What are other companies like you doing in terms of their control framework, or how many loss events do they have versus you, and what kind of action plans are they taking or controls they're taking in place with a certain type of risk and things like that, and suggesting things to you and actions to take. That is what we think Right For Me is. It's not only about just bringing the right risk maturity journey to you, but also allowing you to take advantage of the biggest customer population that we have in terms of risk management in the world, and gathering and helping expose the data from that customer set back to you in an anonymous fashion so that you can understand how that is being, how you can leverage that within your own programs. Finally, it's all about how we actually help you manage specific risk use cases. So one thing that we're doing is we've noticed things like traditional areas of risk management like internal audit and policy management. Those areas need to transform to this new digital transformation era. How can we build analytics and new models within those use cases? So all of our kind of classic use cases, if you will, are being transformed and updated to take advantage of the latest and greatest. We are also introducing new use cases in areas that are very hot topics for you and things that you're looking at. So IoT and cloud risk, DevOps, asset catalogs, asset identification are the areas that we're there that you can look forward to in the next year. So with that said, hopefully that gives you kind of a simple idea of what we believe in and what we see as the future of risk management and how we're responding to that and providing those capabilities within the software. Love to hear what you think, so please stop me in the halls and we can have that discussion. Thank you very much.